You know, I got to be honest with you here, boss. You don't want to give me that gun. 'Cause I'd probably shoot you with it.
Get your education, boy, she used to say. Because that's the only thing the white man can't take away from you. She was right.
Yeah, y'all, this is Sese with your Black Agenda Report morning shot for Monday, June 13th, 2011. Kenneth Wright, a Stockton, California resident, was yanked out of his home by a SWAT team hired by the Department of Education, who was really pursuing his estranged wife on grounds of fraudulent student loans. His 3, 7, and 11-year-old children all had to witness the following chaos.
This is what they did to my door.
At 6 this morning, a SWAT team surprised Kenneth Wright at his front door.
In my underwear. Before I get to the door, I hear him say, hit it. And I get ready to hit the door, and they hit the door. They almost hit me. So I said, hold on. They hit it again. I said, hold on.
But the SWAT team busted in, taking Wright.
They come grab me by my neck and drag me out my house to right there in the grass.
Thrown to the ground and handcuffed, law enforcement then searched his house.
And they put me in the backseat of a police car for over 6 hours. From 6 o'clock to 12:30. They had me handcuffed in the back of a police car with nothing on but my ripped up underwear that they ripped in the yard.
Wright says they also woke his 3 children, holding them for 2 hours. But they failed to find their quarry, Wright's estranged wife. Wright later complained to Stockton's mayor and police, but the city pointed to the U.S. Department of Education.
They say you owe a student loan and you gotta pay it. I just had my door kicked in because of this.
Man, the school-to-prison pipeline has taken on a new meaning these days. The anti-war personality Cindy Sheehan asks the correct questions in a recent article documenting this episode. Quote, how many of us have student loans that are in danger of being defaulted on because we can't find a job? The primary question is, though, why do most of us have to commit ourselves to years of debt to get a university education which should be free in the most wealthiest country in the world?
So I've set a goal that by the end of this decade, we are going to once again lead the world in producing college graduates. To achieve that, we're making college more affordable.
So then why is the Secretary of Education, a one Arnie Duncan, sending SWAT teams to bust cats' doors down in front of their kids who probably will end up in some charter school anyway? This sounds like a language Brother Wright and several others to come just can't understand. Conveniently enough, though, Sheehan is here to translate the larger implications of this non-isolated incident that old dirty Obama just ain't addressing. Quote, the scandal of the rising cost and increasing inaccessibility of higher education can be directly related to the oppression and exploitation by the people that handle Obama like the marionette that he is. The robber class obviously doesn't want hungry people fed, sick people healed, uneducated people schooled, homeless people housed, or poor people prosperous. Their agenda is total domination of the world's resources and complete income inequality in our own country. Unquote. So in lighter news, the United Nations Industrial Development Organization has officially declared that the world is entering an era of permanent food crisis. This would be late-breaking news if imperialism wasn't already systematically denying self-determination to the majority of the world's people, and therefore the equal distribution of the globe's resources as well.
But if we look at the moves that certain countries are making, does that also give us a signal that they're aware that this might start some kind of conflict, that this is something they need to start preparing for? You can look at China, you can look at Saudi Arabia, South Korea. They're starting to buy up pieces of land in other countries so they can produce their own grain.
Yeah, this land grabbing is a huge thing. All these land acquisitions, which is what the diplomats call them, or land grabs, which is what the NGOs call them, who are opposing them. But huge areas now, worldwide, a World Bank tabulation indicates that the area of land acquisitions in other countries now exceeds the area in wheat and corn combined in the United States. So it's not trivial.
So what happens to those local populations?
A lot of them get displaced. their governments just sell huge chunks of land. I mean, it's not as though there aren't villagers there, but in court, villagers don't have title. They've been living there for generations on the same plots of, farming the same plots of land. They don't have a document they can take to a court and say, this is mine. And so a lot of governments are accepting the money from foreign investors and just pushing them aside.
UNIDO reports that the average price of staple foods will more than double in the next 20 years, leading to an unprecedented reversal in human development, which is likely to be accompanied by political unrest and will require radical reform of the international food system.
I mean, could we ever see protests like this happen in the United States? You could say that we really haven't felt the effect of high food prices yet. They're just more of an annoyance and inconvenience for us. It's not a life or death situation. Or will countries like the United States, the developed nations that have their own grain supplies, are they going to be the ones that are okay, that start cutting off that supply to the rest of the world?
The problem is we have one world food economy now, and if we have high prices in the world market, everyone is affected by it. It's not as though we could isolate ourselves. And the tricky thing for us is the Chinese are probably going to be coming into the U.S. market for potentially massive quantities of grain in the not too distant future. And the idea that American consumers, we can be competing with 1.4 billion Chinese consumers with rapidly rising incomes for our grain harvest, driving up our food prices, is something I don't think most Americans are quite prepared for.
And it only gets better, y'all. The wronging of human rights continues within the United States as public education becomes a thing of the past. The Wall Street Journal reports that academic classes, extracurricular activities, and a host of other materials are being put on students' tabs. Registration fees, technology fees, instructional fees, and processing fees when you choose to pay with a credit card are all menu items on your kid's school diet. Districts across the country have increased fees by as much as 52% this year alone, in some cases amounting to a grand total of $4,446.50 for children who are in foreign language classes, electives, and sports combined. And although some parents support that the imposed fees be offered instead of doing away with specialty classes and activities altogether, we must remember the political context in which we find ourselves. With a military budget more bloated than it has ever been, and the Secretary of Education being a mad dog for privatization and militarization of schools, the thought of people paying absolutely anything for a human right is cold-blooded. Tell me this, will military recruits be charged for the guns they use to kill people? Will there be a night vision goggle fee imposed on mobile infantry soldiers that have missions in the dark? The United States is slowly unmasking itself of any false pretense that it used to distract people before this. It now blatantly tells us that education in general is a futile pursuit. Either you're in elementary school and can't pay for sports, you're a black mother who was arrested for trying to put her child in a better school, or you are coming out of college into an atmosphere of overall joblessness. And if you can find a job, you probably won't have any money to spend, because you'll need it for bail money since a SWAT team has just detained you for not paying your student loans on time.
I just met the most marvelous bunch of niggers. the most marvelous bunch of... You get 'em?